All right, everybody. I'm here with Coach Jake, Director of Coaching, and myself. And we are going to start our first installment of Get Answers. So this is going to go along with our Q&A that we do weekly. We will be posting individual responses on the stories like we normally do, but we're going to be going more in depth here live, and we'll be posting these on YouTube every week. So this last week, we actually had a ton of questions come in, some really good ones. And we're going to go ahead and start off. So I will ask the question. I'll let Coach Jake lead off with his answers, and I'll kind of put my input, and we'll just run it like that. So this guy wants to know, how far out would you do max effort / isometric work before a game?
So what my guys, because baseball is about to start up here in Alabama next week, I'll usually do a max effort pull and squat. Say they play on Thursday, on Monday, and then I'll do isometric pressing on Tuesday, and then Wednesday the coach is kind of weird about stuff. So usually about at least 3 days out, I'll do an iso or max effort, and then usually they're cranking and they're feeling good, and central nervous system's firing for that Thursday, Friday series.
Absolutely. I can second that. Down here in Tampa, we do almost virtually the same thing. Remember, you get motor unit recruitment from max effort for up to 96 hours. Studies have shown. Obviously, the closer to the max effort stimulus, the more the stimulus you're going to maintain. But generally, it's at least 3 days out, you're still going to get a pretty good carryover from your max effort work and isometrics. I should note, and Louis likes to point this out, Ben Johnson, the sprinter, used to do max effort benches the night before his meets. Mm-hmm. And the reason he did bench is because obviously lower body is going to be taxed mostly on sprinting, not as much the upper body, but the central nervous system will gain the net effect. So you can do max effort jumping, max effort pressing, max effort lower, and you're going to maintain excitement on the entire CNS. So
one thing I'll add to that too is, like, especially during season, if you're an in-season athlete, with your stimulus, like I'll do a lot of high box squats, high Anderson squats, a lot of high pin presses, high military presses, so we can still get some super heavy weight, but it's not going to be as taxing if we do a low box squat or normal box squat. So they're feeling good because they're moving 500 pounds to 400 pounds, but they're still, like Jay said, they're getting their central nervous system taxed about 96 to 72 hours before they're going to play.
Absolutely. Same thing. Essentially the less stability and range of motion you can take out of the movement, the more weight you can move, the more overload you're going to get in the CNS, and the more excitement you're going to get out of the CNS. And remember, people shit on shortened range of motion, but in reality, the less range of motion, I have less joint shearing and I have less tissue glide. So it's going to be less total volume on the athlete, even though the weight's heavier. So, yeah. All right. Second question. How do you change your training splits for in season? This is from Striving for the MLB. So I'm assuming he's a baseball guy.
Yeah. Really, I mean, the only thing might change is some of the volume. Intensity stays the same. My volleyball coaches, for instance, they let me go whatever I want to do. If they're playing a game on Friday and we're supposed to do a max effort Thursday, she's going to let me do it. But we will bring the volume down a lot to keep that intensity. And also with that, the baseball guys are a little different just because baseball coaches are a little weird about training. So we'll do a little more volume with a repetition method during the season, but we're still doing max effort, dynamic effort as much as we can. It's just manipulating the intensities and the volume so they don't get fried, because they are practicing every day and playing at least 2 days a week.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. I mean, we'll cut out, honestly, sometimes we'll cut out dynamic effort altogether, depending on the frequency of play in season. Some pitchers, they're getting pitched 2 and 3 times in a week. So dynamic effort, again, that's where the wear and tear comes down. More repetitions means more cross-sectional tissue movement. So, less tissue movement, less times the joints actually, change angles. You've got less wear and tear. Let's see. Don't have a plyo swing. What's an alternative? Box jumps with a question mark. What do you think?
I tell you what I started doing. I saw Bird doing it with his guys, the depth drop with the bands pulling you down. Now, you have to take your time to get to that. I mean, like, it's usually like a 6-week progression when I did it. But, I mean, that's going to be the only thing that can kind of, I think, if you don't have a plyo swing, having something pull you down faster than gravity can And you get a really good stimulus from that. But I would say probably a 6-week progression of depth drops, sticking it, then true plyometrics, stepping off and jumping onto a box or to a vert, and then onto a box, and then the bands pointed down, or even dumbbells. I would probably go dumbbells for 2 weeks and then bands for the last 6 to 7 weeks. It's probably the closest thing I can think of that I've done since I don't have a plyo swing either.
Absolutely. So for me, even though I have a plyo swing, one of the things I'll commonly do is I'll actually strap up bands to my belt squat, and I'll jump in the belt squat, and it becomes almost like a makeshift Vertimax.
Yeah, I've done it with dumbbells to the ground.
So it's that's another pretty good stimulus. The only thing I'll mention about like the bands on the belt squat and like even the depth jumps is you got to remember, like, when it's pulling you down like that, you are impacting with quite a bit of ground force, because it's, you're reaching terminal velocity and more than that because the bands are moving you faster. So you're going to hit the ground with impact. So make sure you're not doing that with your kids. One of the nice things about our little guys, Jake, I know he's good about, managing his stuff with the kids. I see a lot of coaches though, they'll see stuff that we might do with more elite level athletes. And then next thing you know, you got 10-year-olds getting accelerated to the ground with bands. And, plyos, I think, are just one of those hidden things that people don't realize. Yeah, they're super powerful, but they can fuck you up if you don't do them right.
No, you got to remember, there's the volume with the plyos too. You got to remember, if you're doing plyos just off of a box, then you're doing plyos off of a box, over benches, over hurdles. I mean, all that volume adds up in the long run. It's not like you're stepping off and then you do 5 jump over the hurdles and just count that as 1. You got to count that as 5 total plyometric movements. But the biggest thing, man, just do some depth or altitude drops. Have them learn how to stick in the proper position. Once that happens, then you can progress to the other movements. Absolutely, would be the best thing to do.
All right. So Delta 5, he's actually one of our strong coach gyms. Would you train a golfer like a baseball player? What's the same / different?
Man, I pretty much train there's little things I do different because I train golf too with the schools. The only difference I would do with some of the auxiliary stuff or repetition, whatever we want to do at the end, I'll do more holds. Like say we do step ups, I'll have them hold plates out in front just for some more stability because a lot of those kids have no core strength, no shoulder stability. So when they're coming through on their swing, they can't control the head of the club. But once they get that stability, the control is there. So like split squat, step ups, just have them hold something out once a week when you're doing it, and you'll see a huge carryover. Even some anti-rotational work, things like that. But really those step ups and split squats with a plate out in front or a dumbbell in front, I've seen the best with the actual controlling of the head of the club on the drive.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have much to add to that because I don't necessarily work with too many golfers. I know secretly up there at Westside, they actually are working with quite a bit of big name golfers right now. Oddly enough, but the shit works. And at the end of the day, it still comes down to physics. More force applied means higher velocities reach with the body. So I do like the anti-rotation stuff for sure too. Okay, so moving on, black sheep barbell, running the conjugate method on baseball players in season. Do you omit max effort work entirely? I'll take that one and say absolutely not. And this is a conversation I've had at length with Louis multiple times. And understand that when he talks about keeping dynamic effort work in season, a lot of times you're dealing with a coach who is scared of max effort and doesn't understand it. Okay. So you have to kind of work with your sport coaches because as a strength coach, that's one of your jobs. You have to work within the concerns of the sport coach as much as you can. The other thing is, if you want to maintain strength, you do have to have some type of volume work. Dynamic effort is generally where you're going to get your volume and you're going to maintain the muscle mass and strength you've gained. Especially if you're not doing max effort. But for us, it's the opposite. We pretty much focus on max effort. We don't lose any weight. We don't lose any strength. We just continue to get stronger. And then we try to put our volume in sparingly after times where we don't have, we've just had come off an outing and we know we might have a day or two to recover. So it's kind of
that's the same. That's the same with me. I'm doing max effort twice a week, upper, lower. Yep. And during the season, especially with baseball, I won't do as much dynamic. Those days will be more repetition with dumbbells, kettlebells, just the bodybuilding type stuff. Because one, it's going to keep them healthy. And two, mentally, the kids, the athletes, they enjoy that pump feeling. But at the end of the day, it's helping with those joints. Now, my volleyball girls, I do it all because that coach, she wants it hard. And I mean, we win state championships with every team I've worked with, but it's all about the volume. I'm not doing 8x5, 10x3. It's 5x3, 5x2 dynamic stuff, super fast, super explosive, in and out. But with baseball, yeah, I'll do a lot more dumbbell, kettlebell, repetition, bodybuilding style stuff instead of dynamic days. But I'll still do plyos or jump training on those days to get that stimulus.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I think with baseball, there's so much acute volume already in the same range of motion that's why we stay away from it. All right. CJ Suarez, where can I get some STRONGEIGHT gear? Well, we have a bunch of brand expansion that's happening right now, which you guys are probably seeing, and to the different specialties that Jake and I are rolling out programming to. But in the meantime, stay on the lookout. You'll see gear dropping pretty soon, hopefully before this summer. It will be limited in edition, and it will be individual drops. So once one thing drops, that design will drop and it'll never be sold again. So just be prepared for that. Okay, Jack Rinzel, what would you say to those who believe max effort training is too high risk for athletes? Well, I would say you're fucking stupid, but you're probably here for the more technical answer. So what do you think, Jake? What would you say to a coach?
Well, usually I hate when coaches say that because, well, what are you doing on the field every day? Football. So I played football in college. I played football at the highest level before I ruptured my Achilles. So it's like, what are we doing every day? You are going – it doesn't matter if it's for 5 seconds on a play in football or throwing a baseball during practice. You're giving max effort for that given time frame. So why would you not do what you're doing all off-season, preseason, and then cut it off during the season where you're going to get hurt, get frailed, because now you're giving maximum effort during practice, but your body is going to get beat up. And my mind just gets frazzled on questions. It really pisses me off because the kids need, like I remember in college during camp, we had to do close grip stuff, and it wasn't so much max effort, but it was a high percentage. And I mean, I was doing 4 or 5 for sets of 5, right? Like going heavy as shit. And the other kids are like, oh, I'm beat up, I'm sore. I was like, well, I never got hurt during the season. Never got hurt until I ruptured my Achilles, which was a freak thing. But it's like, you've got to maintain that stimulus all year round. Or when the playoffs come or championship comes, what was all that hard work for if you're not maintaining through the season?
Yeah, you get to the end of the season where it counts the most and you're beat down because you haven't been training. Exactly. Like the concept of eliminating things that make us perform at our peak just has never made sense to me. And what I would really tell everybody, most of you guys know, I come at things from a perspective of math quite a bit. And the math is very easy to explain why I would prioritize max effort over any other form of either repeated effort method or dynamic effort method. Because, as a closing in on a 100-pound deadlift, Jake in the 4s and his clean and jerks and Olympic lifts, like we can show you without a reasonable doubt that us training in the max effort method, we accumulate far less volume than anybody who does repetition method. Even 3x5s or the 5-3-1 or any of those other methods that involve repeated effort method, we can train max effort, continue to get stronger, and have less total training volume. So we're more fresh. I don't know about you, Jake, but when I leave the gym on a max effort day, I feel better than when I started my workout. Like when I leave the gym on dynamic effort day, I feel like fucking shit. Like I feel smashed.
Well, I think you put it good. Like, so for instance, this goes right to what I did yesterday, and I posted that video. I literally got off the phone with you, had our conference call, got off the phone, went up to the gym, turned the phone on, worked up to a max effort single on a front squat in less than 5 minutes, took a 3-minute break, worked up to a max effort single on a pause stiff leg deadlift that took 4 minutes. And then today I had a seminar, and I clean and jerked 4 or 5 beltless, and I literally went 135, 225, 315, 405, all singles. I took 4 reps working up, right? And before that, I did my snatches was the same thing. 135, 225, 275, 315, 330, in and out. And I did max effort yesterday, and I felt fine today for my lifts. So these coaches that say that, they have no idea. They've never trained. They've never put the work in. They're just skilled. It's frustrating. No,
and the other thing too is, remember, the kings of max effort, the Bulgarians, they did max effort multiple times a day. They took daily maxes, yes, that's less than optimal, but like it's totally possible to train the system at maximal intent it for a very short time. Like, what Jake was doing yesterday was microdosing. He put his body through microdoses of maximum effort throughout the week. And like, think about it like that. For most sports where you have multiple competitive cycles in a year and multiple competitions in a week, for track, baseball, soccer, volleyball, most every sport besides football, you need to be able to perform at maximum effort multiple times in a week. So how better to prepare your body for that than to fucking train like that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It just makes sense, I think. But we could probably go all night on that question, I guess. You got anything else to say about that?
No, but like you said, I think the Bulgarians are the best. Like, you can take out the drug, all the stuff, but literally it would be 30 minutes clean and jerk, 15-minute break, 30-minute snatch, 15-minute break, 30-minute squat, 2-hour break, and then repeat it 3 times during the day for 6 days a week. And like I said, the microdosing of just getting stronger and adapting and adapting and adapting.
Athletes ever.
It worked.
All right. What's best, Max Harper, what's best for building lockout strength for deadlift, heavy good mornings, or heavy RDLs?
I think you should start with this because you have a stronger deadlift.
I can tell you for me, I think a lot of this depends on range. I think anthropometrics, like whether you have a longer torso, longer legs, etc. But in my experience, I have super long legs, pretty short torso, long arms. I'm about to roll into heavy good mornings. When I start to have lockout issues, I'll do heavy good mornings from a higher angle. Mm-hmm. So I'll do like concentric off a pin. I'll do camber bar good mornings. I like camber bar good mornings for lockout strength because it kind of puts you in that position where you're a little bit over yourself and the camber kind of swings forward. I've had success with those. RDLs, I don't really look at RDLs as being a great lockout builder because, to be honest with you, most guys cannot do RDLs with close to the amount of weight they can lock out in a traditional deadlift or a sumo deadlift. So I don't think that at least I don't feel like there's a lot of carryover from RDLs. I think that RDLs, if anything, are a good conventional floor breaker if you pull with higher hips. So like, I personally pull with higher hips with a rounded upper back. Yeah. Jake, I think you kind of pull.
I pull pretty high. My back's pretty flat, but I mean, I'm all back on deadlift. Yeah. But like RDLs, I'll do them more so for my clean snatches. But I really like stiff leg deadlifts, deficit stiff leg deadlifts, pause stiff leg deadlifts, because you might have a slight bend in your knee, and that's all lower back. And one thing I started doing with my pro day guys this year, because they're just not the strongest guys in the world, is a lot of seated, either sumos or seated regular deadlifts, because they can't go heavy, but the first hinge coming off the ground, they're so weak at. Because they can stand up with the weight, but you make them hinge to get it off the ground, and that's a huge weakness right there.
Yeah, true.
That I've seen that's slowly progressing them stronger and stronger each week.
Agreed. I'm not sure if this is a real question or not. Hey, Strongeight, what's your favorite Netflix movie and TV series?
Oh, is it got to be an original Netflix show, or just
any? I think any.
I'm watching Dexter for like the 3rd time now.
Dexter's pretty legit. I'm gonna have to go with Spartacus back when that was a thing.
That was good. The first season.
Yeah, then got to get a little weird after that, but that was probably my favorite series.
Punisher season 2 for Netflix was better than the first season, I think.
Yeah,
I like all that. Movies don't have very good movies, though.
No,
Netflix doesn't have good originals.
No, Amazon Prime is a thing now for TV.
Oh yeah, what was that? Yeah. What was that show? Superhero show. The Good Guys. Oh, God, it was a comic book show. It was crazy. But anyways, next question.
Yeah. You guys perform any Olympic lifts? All right. Old Jake's taking
so that one. That would be me. So yeah, so I compete in Olympic lifting at a high level. Last year, I was number 2 in the nation, right behind Wes Kitts. He's training for the Olympics, so he's kind of on another level. Right now, I'm still battling for that 3rd to 2nd spot. I just haven't competed. I've been sick. But with the Olympic lifts, you need to look at it as if you're competing in Olympic lifting, look at it as sport practice and your strength conditioning as strength work. And once you can actually separate the two, then it's so much easier to train. But if you try to go super heavy on Olympic lifts every day, and super heavy in the weight room on your strength stuff, you're going to be so fried because you're not taking drugs, you're not doing that. You're natural in the United States. So if you look at it as sport practice as what do I need to work on? And then your strength work will keep you healthy, keep you strong. So when you do have a heavy clean, heavy snatch, you'll hit it every single time. That's the simplest way I can put it without like detail.
So that's one thing I can tell you guys, like, so I've been one of the big like proponent, like probably the, like I throw the gasoline on the Olympic lift fire a lot not because I demonize the Olympic lifts, but because I demonize the Olympic lifts. Number one, when strength coaches who can't do Olympic lifts are teaching them. That's the first thing. Is like, I don't teach the Olympic lifts because I'm not superior at them. I was decently, and I had a decent clean and stuff in high school, but it was never pretty, and I never had really good form. Now, I do love Olympic variations. I do hang high pulls, hang cleans, shit like that. One, because they're easier to teach. Two, because I think that the ranges can fit a little bit more into other sports. See, the problem, like Jake mentioned with Olympic lifts, the full classical lifts are the sport themselves. Think about how complex the clean and jerk is. There's multiple movements and vectors of force production in there, different joint angles, different positions. The strength curve is off the charts, right? So you literally, in order for Jake to get better at the Olympic lifts, he trains multiple ranges and multiple different exercises to make each part of his Olympic lift the highest possible, right? So like these other programs for baseball who use the Olympic lifts as a substitute for explosive power, it's kind of like, in my opinion, and I talked to another guy who's kind of a colleague, and he's a big Olympic guy. He uses conjugate sequencing, but he has the opinion that Olympic lifts make you more athletic, which I can see. But then he kind of alluded to me, like even in his programming, he literally goes through a period of programming where he's programming for the kids to get better at the Olympic lifts. And in conjugate fashion, where you're using specialized movements to break down the lifts, he's doing that. And then once the athletes get good enough to do the Olympic lifts, then they have the Olympic lifts in their programming. And to me, that sounds like a long way around to get to the same fucking end goal. So, like we're working on putting in more Olympic work under Jake's guidance in the baseball programming, because there are things that those lifts do that other lifts can't accomplish. It's just like any other lift. So, but to me, it's not Olympic weightlifting is not Olympic weightlifting is not a system. Like when strength coaches call themselves an Olympic strength coach, that's still bullshit. Like you're a strength coach who uses the Olympic lifts. That's one method of strength, or it's not even a method. It's actually an exercise.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, that's kind of how I look at it. But again, like he said, like in reality, anybody who talks shit about STRONGEIGHT and the Olympic lifts, our director of coaching is like the number 2 or 3 Olympic lifter in the fucking United States. So like, how are you really going to argue with us? Like, whatever, you can.
No, and like with Olympic lifts too, I mean, so many people nowadays are starting to go to just training 2 or 3 days a week. Like these are people that have been doing it forever in the country who've won national championships, like doing a lift 2 or 3 days a week only, and then squatting and pulling and pressing the other days, which is very similar to how I train with the conjugate system, with the max effort pressing, all that stuff, but doing Olympic lifts 2-3 days a week to stay fresh, to get motivated. And you'll see huge improvements. But you should just email us, sign up, and we can show you how it really looks.
Yeah, exactly. All right. What have you found best to work? What have you found to work best to change body composition? Jake, you're the nutrition guy out of the two of us. I'm over here eating smashing fucking healthy enchiladas.
I mean, really, it's just being disciplined in your diet. And you don't have to you can eat a lot. You don't have to so it depends how old you are too. So if you're a kid and you're in high school, what I tell every high school athlete, because we've all been kids. I remember when I was a kid, my parents had to lock the fridge, lock the cupboard. I'd eat everything. But Monday through Friday, fuel your body for the game, for the event. Saturday, Sunday, be a kid. Have your soda, have your candy, and you'll slowly start, in 3 weeks, now I don't feel like eating it on Saturday. I'm going to just eat clean. I'm feeling better. And then it goes away. But just your diet, lean meats, basic carbohydrates, rice, potatoes, basic vegetables, not a lot of oils, and you can still have good tasting food. The biggest thing is watching. Some people are really good with fats. Some people are really good with carbohydrates. You kind of have to know your body. So with me, I'm really good with fats. So I don't need carbs per se. but I kind of need them now because I'm working all the time. Like I need to stay awake and have energy to lift. But when I was doing CrossFit, when I was starting my business, barely any carbs, a lot of fats, and I was the leanest I ever was. I mean, I was about 230, had a six pack. I was shredded. But you have to first find out where you're at, fats, carbs. And then once you find that out, then we can start plugging in numbers like we'll try this much fats, this much carbs, this much protein, this at night, and then spike you up on another day. Maybe do some fasting. There's so many things that go into it. You just have to know your body, and then we can get back to you about what works.
Yeah, and that's something for sure. Like we handle that with all of our athletes, no matter what sport it is. Just because the demands of the different sports dictate what you need as far as energy. And that's what it comes down to. Overall, if you want to lose fat, you have to have some type of a slight caloric deficit, no matter what style of dieting you have. And if you want to gain muscle mass, you have to be in some sort of a small caloric surplus. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Now, that's where I've used it, intermittent fasting, with a ton of success, because I'm a huge believer in the fact that, the body isn't just a bank where at the end of the week, it calculates how many calories you burned versus how many calories you ingested and says, okay, I'm going to lose fat or gain muscle. Like it's happening second by second. So like if I'm in a caloric surplus right now, I can be anabolic, and anabolism, and part of an anabolic process is gaining fat too. Right. Yeah. But if your muscles, if your body's glycogen starved and your muscles starved and you have cross-sectional damage from a heavy workout, your body's going to prioritize that caloric intake or that caloric surplus for muscle gain. No. So for me, even, and not for nothing, people talk shit about intermittent fasting for athletes, but it's like, think about it like this. You guys already intermittently fast. You get up, you have barely anything for breakfast, you work, or you go to school and you're at school until 1 or 2 or whatever it is. You might not go to lunch. And if you do, it's some bullshit,
French fries, pizza.
Yeah. Right. And then you go straight to practice. Half you guys are eating 1 meal a day. Yeah. You know what I mean? So not that that's ideal, but it's like with an athlete's schedule, and even somebody who's a strength sport athlete and has a job, like most of us who are strength sport athletes, like we're doing that. Even if you're doing it professionally, you still have a full-time job too. And a lot of you guys own gyms, or you fucking, you work in the industry somewhere or whatever it is. Like, it's the same thing. Like you don't have time to eat 6-7 meals a day. So
I think with the fasting too, to get back to it, that's one way. Like when you get the anabolic to build the muscle, like you said, with guys, it's usually like a 6 to 8 hour fast. So think about if you're fasting and then you eat, or you train and then you eat, like your body's going to absorb all that because so much damage is being done that's going to build you more muscle. I love intermediate fasting. I think it's the best, especially like JJ was saying, like depending on what you're working on and stuff. When I did CrossFit, everything was 5 to 20, 30-minute workouts. So the carbs didn't really matter. I needed the fats because I needed to burn all the fats with oxygen for all that energy, right? So you have to know your sport too, like JJ was saying earlier, kind of know what you need to take in for energy. Yeah.
So that's something we definitely cover in our strength sport platform, and then all of our other platforms for our different athletes too. So, all right, let's see. What is your take on the push, pull, legs, rest method? So I'm guessing he's talking about like the normal, like kind of like a bodybuilding split that's like push, pull, legs. For me, like if it's the kind of question that I think it is like, if you think that like, again, that's just a method of organizing your training days. Like you can still train conjugate in using a conjugate sequencing system, because people think that conjugate is just max effort, dynamic effort. That's it. Like that's not how it works. Like conjugate sequencing is planning your programming over a period of multiple years, and then the seasonal cycles within each year, and then the macro cycles within each seasonal cycle, and then the individual micro cycles or weeks of training, and then the training days. So you can organize your training however you want. You could do a max effort push day, a max effort pull day, and a max effort leg day. And then you could do dynamic effort for each one of those. I've actually thought about doing stuff like that before. It comes down to, then for me to get 2 upper body days and 2 lower body days in, like I kind of have to train 6 days a week, and then I don't have time to, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and then it's hard to get max effort for pulls just the way that they are for your upper back and shit like that. So I don't know. I've never been big into that, but I mean, if you're just a general bodybuilder, you can definitely plan repeated effort, dynamic effort like that.
No, yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, you have to go 6 days a week. I think the best way to run something like that is have your 4 days a week of how max effort dynamic, or however you set your system set up, your 4 true training days. Then your other days, you can have your bodybuilding splits. You can do that, and you're not going to be burnt out. Don't like, I mean, those guys at Westside and all my athletes, I mean, we're training 7 days a week. But I mean, all those smaller sessions are just the bodybuilding, the bands, and you never get beat up from that. But that's how you're going to slowly build the muscle, keep the tendons, the integrity in your joints up. So that's where you can really throw in those other pulls and presses, even on a lower body day. So say you do max effort upper on a Monday, then you have like lower body something on a Wednesday. Why don't you do your volume work from Monday after you do your lower body if you want to do that? You'll be fine. You just have to know the days you're going to train and understand that you can't do crazy stuff all week long, or you're just going to burn out like your body, your CNS. I mean, but now that I'm 30, like I used to do that shit when I was 25, I could do it, but now try to do it now. It's just, you gotta be realistic.
Yeah. All right. Could you give us percentage and reps and sets you program for a powerlifting Circa Max? Okay. So here's the thing with Circa Max. Like technically Circa Max is literally caught like using the theory of supercompensation, and basically planning out a 3-week peak, right? So like I hit my heaviest max effort 3 weeks out from the meet, and then I taper down over the next 3 weeks. So like how commonly at Westside, what they'll do is they'll do like 50% of your max in straight weight with as much band as you can possibly take on a squat bar. Mm-hmm. And then they'll do like their deadlift opener on a mat. So it's like a low level max effort. So like a 95 to 97% of their 1 rep max, somewhere in that range, on like an elevated block pull or something like that. And then 1 week out from the meet, they'll go back and they'll do like basically just all GPP. They won't pull any maxes, or they'll hit a bench for a max, mm-hmm. right? Because if you're looking at this, like essentially the tax on the CNS is going from highest to lowest, right? So a supra maximal band and weight combination on the squat, which is going to be the most weight on your back, the most taxing your CNS, 3 mm-hmm. weeks out. 2 weeks out, you're going to take a elevated block pull or rack pull at like 95 to 97%. So it's still heavy as fuck, enough to excite the CNS. But again, back to what we talked about earlier in this video, it's less total volume on the system because it's less range of motion, et cetera. And then the least amount of effect on your CNS is going to be your bench press. And that's 1 week out. As far as percentages, determine the weight for warm-up sets. Oh no, that's a different question. Yeah. So as far as percentages, your dynamic stuff, in my opinion, you're trying to get super compensation. So you should be laying off the volume because you're trying to let the body recoup. And again, everyone's misconception is that max effort is the breaker. Max effort doesn't break you. Dynamic effort does, right? The spoon theory. If I bend a spoon 1 time, I can bend it back and it's fine. If I bend a spoon 100 times, it breaks right in half. Yeah. So I don't know what you had to say about that.
I was just say, so like with my Olympic lifting, for instance, like 3 weeks out, usually I'm doing some sort of crazy variation, pause, something crazy, working up to a max like normal. And then 2 weeks out, I feel like shit, absolute dog shit. I'll probably take like a 90% clean, maybe the 2 weeks out. Snatch, and I'll go 100%. I won't do dynamic work. I'll just focus on the max effort work those 2 days a week, and then the just normal Olympic stuff and some squatting. But then the following week, you just move the bar a little bit, do some heavy pressing, and then 2 days out, all of a sudden you're powering 85%, like it's 65%. And then when you get to your meet, you're crushing it. So it's very similar, like you were saying, with the percent, not so much the percentages, but like the weeks out, same thing with the Olympic lifting. 3 weeks out is really rough. Then 2 weeks out, I go super heavy on the snatch still. The clean kind of feels rough, and then your body starts to adapt. And then the week of, the day of, you're smoking. But nuts from the Olympic stuff, if you're feeling like shit, then you're tapering the right way and you hit it the exact way. If you're feeling good going into the meet, then you're gonna have a bad meet. Then you're gonna fall off. Mm-hmm. Is what I've found, at least with the Olympic lifting. I haven't really competed in the powerlifting, so I can't say for that. But it's probably
going in, I feel like going into the meet week, you should be feeling pretty like, you're like, fuck. And then
Yeah.
like night and day, you make your cut and then you just load up with fucking sodium and carbs and water. And all of a sudden you're just like, you feel good. Right. And like, it's super hard, and make it clear, Louis talks about this too. It is super, super hard to predict the CNS's variability.
Yeah.
So like all we can really do is get a general range of like, hey, I'm in the range for a PR. That's another reason I believe max effort is so important, is like, especially if you compete in max effort sports like throws, sprints, jumps, lifts, like you need to be good at performing at the upper echelon of what your body's capable of. And there's only one way to do that. You can only practice max effort with max effort.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get good at 100% weights if you're always taking 80% weights.
No.
So, that's kind of just we'll add that in there. When is it useful to do dynamic effort work at 20 to 40% of your 1 rep max? So that's explosive strength. I don't know. Do you guys use that? You guys use 20 to 40% ranges?
If I do, it's just because my guys they can't handle the normal percentages. Like they're either too smoked because they can't handle the volume, or they're just too weak in general. Like even though their max may be, say like my guys box squat 405 and say like 60%, I don't know, it's around maybe 50. Well, it's around like 240, 250. But like I'm watching it. So then the next week when I do my next 3-week wave, I might drop it down to 30%, add a little more band tension, or keep the bands, maybe add some chains. But it's just kind of like watching the athlete or knowing your body. Like if you're moving slow, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like the goal is to move it fast. Your body doesn't know what percentages are, what bands are, what chains are. It knows what effort is and what speed is. Mm-hmm. So only you as a coach can control, the effort that you're giving in. Is the best way I can put it. I
agree. I mean, we'll go through explosive strength waves, but we plan those. Yeah. What we'll do is we'll commonly go like, we'll start off a kid with explosive strengths on his first experience with us. First couple waves, we'll start explosive strength just so he can get used to moving fast. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that there's this weird phenomenon that I found in my gym. Like if our weights are too light, kids slow down. And I think it's because of the whole concept of effort. Like you can only pull light weight so hard. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, you guys might know this phenomenon. Like there's like a range where like, it almost feels like you can push certain amounts of weight faster than you can push lighter weight. And it's just because it requires more recruitment. It requires more intent essentially. Right. So your neural drive is higher. Like, but yeah, I mean, if we drop into those weights, we generally plan it, or like Jake said, it's because we have a kid that's just smoked, or he's probably just smoked, or he's super weak and super new to what we're doing. So, let's see, moving on. How do you determine the weight for the warm-up sets for max effort main movements?
I kind of let the kids or myself or the athletes just get to a solid 8. There's not really percent. I don't know. I don't like percentages on max effort stuff unless I'm doing a drop set afterwards. It's kind of, you're just loading it up. You're getting warm. You're feeling good, and you're moving it with the intent of breaking the floor, breaking the bar. Mm-hmm. If you look too much at percentages, then all of a sudden now you got 12 sets that you're doing, when do you really need to do 12 sets to warm up for max effort lift? No. So I'm not a big percentage guy when it comes to warming up. It's kind of plate. I mean, it sounds super meathead and not super scientific, but at the same time, I mean, you just got to go. But you have to be smart about it. You can't, I mean, if you only squat 405, you can't do plate jumps, right? But if you squat 600, like, I mean, I literally go, I do singles, 405, I mean, 135, 225, 315, 405, 500, 550, and then I'll maybe take smaller jumps from there. You have to know that 90% number maybe, but until you get to there, it's just like plate jumps, couple singles, couple doubles, and you're good.
That's exactly what I do. I run plate jumps until I get to about 90%. And so what I'll commonly do, like on a pull day, I'll start off my first double is like 315, second double is 405, and then I'll go 495, 585, 675, and then that's when I start taking shit serious once I get into the sevens. Yeah. So I'll still, most of my variations now I'm taking another plate, like even after 675. And then I'll commonly, I mean, I'm probably known for pulling to failure. So, and I'll just skip right over what my PR would have been, because for me, what I've realized over the years is that max effort is just as much about the diagnostic proper, potential as it is about the actual, achieved lift. So I don't get much out of the record myself. Like, yeah, it's an ego boost when I get a record, but for me, it's more about seeing what I'm not capable of yet and then finding out why. Yeah. Right. So like if I double over, like for instance, I posted that lift tonight off those 2-inch blocks from 2 months ago, which was 805. And the way that moved, I can tell you the way my other weights are moving and progressing right now, I know that that's already capable off the floor if I'm feeling fresh. But like at that point, I was still having some struggle with like my upper abdominals and my upper back. But I hadn't been able to move enough weights and get to that point where I could feel that was still a weakness, right? So like everything else is fine. Like my legs, everything else strong enough, but I couldn't extend my thoracic spine and keep my brace and my diaphragm. So for me, it was more valuable because I smoked 705 off the 2 inches. Most people would say, well, fuck, you should have went for 785 or whatever. But I've already pulled 785 from different ranges. I don't give a fuck. Like I want to see what's weak. And I know if I fail, I'm going to see what's weak. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm the same way. So it's like for cleans, for instance, like I'm so fast and explosive off the ground and I get under the bar so fast that if it crashes on me, my T-spine used to be super weak. So I would get like this because it would crash. So it's like, well, how do I fix that? So instead I would, go to failure. Like, where am I missing it? It usually crashes on me around 420 to 450. So I know I have to fix something between those ranges to get the adaptation, but you got to hit those numbers and go to failure to see where you're messing up. Same thing on squatting, deadlifting. So like with a high bar back squat for the Olympic lifts, like if I fail, it's not going to be in the hole. It's going to be where above 90. So where am I failing? Is it my glutes, my hamstrings, is my back weak? So yeah, you got to see where you're failing at some point as well.
Absolutely. Okay, Jake, I've done this with some success because believe it or not, Strong 8 a long time ago actually was pretty big in soccer. But would you use the conjugate system with a soccer player?
Yeah. So my first year at one of the schools, we had a new coach. They never won state championship in soccer, and we crushed them. The parents hated us during the fall semester. The girls were bitching. They were moaning. They were tired from all the running and sprinting and squatting and deadlifting, but then they'll go up and win the first state championship ever at the school in female girls soccer. So yes, I'd use it in the conjugate system. I mean, you can use it with any sport. Don't use it like in any realm, and just don't think there's so many different ways to use it.
Everybody just thinks West Side and powerlifting. Yeah. Guys, there's a ton. Every time I go to West Side, there's Olympic level athletes. There's fucking world record holders. There's fucking national championships and champions in the fucking 200 meters. Like they just don't advertise what they're doing with athletes. Like I have a super high profile athlete that Jake and I are going to be working with, coming to us, and like he got his start at Westside, and they sent him to us to finish him up, like and basically take over his training. So like just understand that like the brand and the message and who they are, that's who Louis is, and that's like his legacy and stuff like that. Like the man has trained more championship athletes in more sports than probably any strength coach of our time and era. And it's all been done using the conjugate system. So, and even those of you who think that Louis doesn't, Louis says that the conjugate system is West Side. No, Louis knows the conjugate system has infinite possibilities. What he's developed with what everybody else calls the West Side methods, it's just one possible framework that happens to be very, very efficient for layering your training. You know what I mean? So you can use it with any sport. We've had a ton of success, just like with Jake with soccer. I have girls that have gotten, they got scholarships to Navy. I got girls that are, every soccer player I trained got Division I scholarship, every single one of them. So, so it's like, it's phenomenal. And understanding that one of the things is you build a girl who's maximally strong and extremely explosive, she's going to outperform on the field day and night. Because in soccer, it's one of those sports that if you have one step on the person that you're competing against, you've already won.
And with the movements that we teach them, like in the conjugate system with the variety and everything, like the biggest injury in female sports is ACL. Soccer, it's the worst just because the constant lateral. And so everything we're doing is putting lateral force out to activate the glutes and the hamstrings to hopefully protect those knees in the long run. And then with back to the Louis thing, like if you read his books, I mean, he repeats himself so much, but he repeats himself and says, I got this from so-and-so, from Russia, from Bulgaria, from their sports team. It's like he's telling you where he got it from, and that's where everybody gets it. They just, for some reason, want to poo-poo on the system because he's crazy with how he talks. But, I mean, he knows what he's talking about because everybody else has taken from those systems back in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s when they were dominating everybody. I mean, China, they do the conjugate system. I mean, like they have bodybuilding. They call it bodybuilding, but it's like they do the repetition method after every workout. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that we'd probably do a whole nother video on that. All right. That's a crap one. Okay. Is it okay for intermediate lifters to be going to failure for max effort? I work with a lot of kids who would you consider intermediate and below lifters. And I can tell you that in my opinion, it's safer even for a younger athlete to do max effort. Here's why. The younger the athlete, the more pliable the tissue, okay? Younger athletes have far more flexibility naturally, and they have the ability to enter ranges that we can't generally enter as adults. The other thing is that they're very like, they have a high propensity for neuroplasticity, meaning they can generate neural pathways and develop neural pathways 10 times faster than like a grown man. So the adaptive results they're getting from max effort is absolutely fucking absurd. Number one. And then to build off of that, you're dealing with an athlete that can only move so much weight, right? So when we look at the human body and the stresses that are placed in the human body and stuff like that, think about it like this. If I have 10-year-olds that come in and take max effort, which I do. So they come in and take a max effort sumo. We're dealing with like 90 pounds to 100 pounds, right? 100 pounds is 100 pounds. It's hitting the earth with the same amount of force. The body is more resilient when they're younger. So you have a situation where the athlete is working with far less weight and the resiliency of the body is much higher, right? So in my opinion, and what would be common sense, max effort is safer for younger athletes. Not only that, if these athletes learn how to strain under heavy loads, they learn how to get in correct positions, they learn how to actually stay calm under large loads. As those loads start to increase, as their natural strength increases, they run less and less risk for injury in the weight room, right? And then we've also developed more neuroplasticity, which means better rate coding, which means better motor recruitment, which means better, applicability on the field. So in reality, your younger athletes should be doing max effort. I have the national championship 10U team who became the national championship 11U team and the national championship 12U team. And I've had them 3 years running. They started with me at 7 and 8 doing max effort isometrics. They're, as collectively as a team, they're the strongest group of 11 and 12-year-olds I've probably ever met, and they're baseball players. Yeah. They've been taking max effort for 3 years. So.
No, and I think too, like you said, the neuroplasticity, I mean, I can remember myself, I started when I was like 12 doing stuff. And the reason I was so strong when I was 15, 16 is because building those pathways, getting stronger, lifting heavy, and doing the max effort with a coach that knows what's going on, we can see where they're weak or where they're, oh, hey, set it down. Let's fix this before you go again. So then at 10 years old, you fix those motor patterns, and then you don't have to worry about them ever again. Like when we do the biomechanics with the running and the jumping, it's so much easier. Even though the first couple of weeks are hard with a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, once they have it down, it's the coding, it's in their brain. Like you don't have to worry about it ever again.
Absolutely. All right. Should I drink Bang energy drink before or after a workout? I don't even know how to answer that.
I think I drink those all day long. But
yeah,
there's been some stuff for recovery. So I forgot where I read what the article was, but drink half your Bang, or if you're like me, you get like 3 of them a day at a time. But anyways. Same. Don't drink the whole thing before. Drink some after you're done, because that caffeine I forgot what it does for recovery, but there's actually been shown to help you recover faster.
I think I've read the same thing.
With a little bit of caffeine post workout. Not a lot of caffeine, but like say you have like a quarter of it left, you drink it post workout with a sugar or a good carbohydrate, it's going to help you recover a lot faster. But yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're old enough, definitely have all Bang, C4, whatever you want, as long as.
Yeah, that's a good disclaimer. So me, what I normally do is I'll smoke like a C4 or 2 C4s before my workout, and then I'm snorting fucking nose torque, like all the way leading up to my mains. So, but I'm a stimulant junkie. Now, that said, I got super high ADHD, so caffeine and stimulants affect me a little bit different than they affect most people. So like I'm like Jake, like I'm literally drinking caffeine all day long. So, I think a lot of that depends. If you're asking about the recovery aspect, save some for afterwards. If you want the neural priming and you want to get some type of elevated training effect, then you got to drink it before. But I think Bang sucks anyway. I like C4s. The C4s in the can. Those are my jam.
I think too. If you want something to get you going, I would even, if you like coffee, try some coffee or try like a fruit juice, something with like real sugar, real carbohydrate, something that's a little bit better for you, or even eating some fruit and then maybe having half your Bang, you're going to feel better because hopefully your diet's good enough. And it's hard. And I know we're talking about all the stuff we drink because we need to fix some of our diet stuff too, but hopefully your diet's good enough to where maybe you only need half the Bang and then you drink half after, you know what I mean? That you're feeling good and you're ready to go.
Yeah, that's like for me, like one of the things I do is I eat like Rice Krispie treats and like Gushers, for the simple sugars and some carbs, like an hour or two before.
All my Olympic lifters do that. They come in with gummy bears and eat them.
Yeah, it does. It makes a difference. And like there's studies have shown you can literally just drink Gatorade and swish it around in your mouth and spit it out, and your body still incites the same insulin processes. I forget where the study is, but they did it where they just did carbohydrate mouthwashes, and it literally gives you an insulin response. So if you're really worried about dialing your body composition and shit, like you can get the same insulin response from just swishing carbohydrates in your mouth, something with the salivate glands. So that's some advanced shit there though. So, all right. How do you structure your accessory work? Supersets are all separate. What you go first, Jake?
I think it depends on the athlete or team. So for instance, I have like a couple powerlifting guys at the gym that I'm doing now. And usually it just depends. Like so you got to think about your accessories too, though. Like, let's get into this. So you have your main lift, say it's a pressing day. You have your main max effort, dynamic effort lift. And then you have your secondary lift, which is supposed to make that stronger. So that's usually by itself. So for me, I really like for my own strength, like I always knew if I incline press with 3 sets of 5 or 3x3 with pauses after my main lift. And as that got stronger, I knew that I was going to get a PR. And then after that, the auxiliary stuff, I'll superset all that stuff, the bands, the machines, all that stuff. But usually that secondary stuff, I'll try to keep that by itself unless it's a max effort day. I might superset those together because you're only doing, say, 5 reps to get to your max. So then you have more time to get some more volume in. But usually the secondary is by itself, and then all the auxiliary stuff, which is for your joints, your bodybuilding muscles, those, superset the shit out of those because you'll never get fatigued from that stuff. As long as it's like dumbbells, kettlebells, machines. Like, I'm not talking about bench pressing 10 by 10 or anything crazy like that.
Yeah, I think that goes in line pretty much with us too. If like we do an overload or a back down, whatever you want to call it, those heavy 3s and heavy 5s, we'll generally treat those as individual lifts and just, work those till failure. That's pretty much in the way we run the system. Like we look at it like, okay, we see failure on max effort day, whatever the overload or the back down is essentially, that's your specialized. Like that's the thing that you're supposed to kill. You got to kill that because that's the weakness. So like if it was triceps on your bench or your elbows flared and, your lats are weak, or, your ass is shooting up on your deadlift and it's your hamstrings. Like the first thing you do is you go to that primary movement and you blow that fucker up because that's the specialized. And then, all of your accessory, like Jake said, all of your other specialized, your volume accessories, you can blow those through in basically in circuit style fashion.
No, like for instance, with this is something I started with my pro day guys this week for the new cycle. After their dynamic stuff, we did some seated sumo deadlift, supersetted with nothing, 3 sets of 8, super heavy because their backs were weak. Then after that, I got but I got an old school hack squat machine, bear squat machine, a bunch of that stuff. We did 2 sets of 8, but a giant superset on that to get their legs in shape. So when they're at pro day, they're not going to get tired going over the bags, doing sprints, doing the shuttles, but we're not sprinting them. So they're not going to get fatigued, and not be able to work the next day. But just those secondary, those specialized movements, we got to hit those by themselves, I think. And then the other stuff, just get after and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this one's a little difficult. Any tips for training traps upper back while suffering from TMJ? Me being in fight sports, like TMJ is tough, dude. But the problem is the neck, the muscles, like the scalenes, everything, the traps, like everything, and like the controls of mandible, that shit is also innervated. And you're dealing with such a sensitive part of neurology there, like the CNS. Like you think about it, your cervical spine is super sensitive. So anything you do is gonna cause you issue. What I would say for upper back for sure, put your bench at like a 45-degree incline or a little bit lower, and do all of your shrugs if you can do them, and upper back work in like kind of like a chest supported row with like dumbbells, plates, kettlebells, stuff like that. Because if you can kind of like rest your chin or your face on the bench and rest your chest on the bench too, what'll happen is you'll eliminate the need to kind of strain at the neck, and then you can still work the scap function, which is where basically scaps is where most of your upper back and traps is happening. So that'll give you some support in your neck. What do you have to say about that?
It's hard, man. I tell you what, I don't know if what is it called? RPR. Are you familiar with that, JJ? Like the release stuff or like the Poliquin stuff? I don't know if they have anything that might help with that. But so like RPR is like a release therapy in your joints and your tendons and your hamstrings. And Poliquin, before he died, he had some crazy stuff. So I would maybe Google him because he was like super advanced with certain things. But I mean, he might have an article on the Strength Sensei website about that. But I mean, I've never dealt with an athlete or anything with that issue. So,
all right, let's see. Massive thanks for answering my previous cues. Keep them smashing. Thanks, dude. All right, do you prefer to stick with certain accessory movements or rotate them every week? What do you guys do, Jake?
We usually go about 3 weeks on our accessory movements. I'll change maybe the volume or intensity on them depending on the athlete, or maybe add an extra superset or extra exercise. But it's just easier for like the athletes just to stay with that for 3 weeks, and then the next 3-week wave, something totally different. But like it might be the first week I might have 2 exercise supersetted, they take a break, and another 2 exercise supersetted. Then by week 3, all 4 and all in line together. Just slowly change the adaptation. But I mean, I don't think it's needed to change every week, because how many exercises you're gonna have to come up with exercises after a while.
For sure. We're exactly the same. The way we do it is, we program using the 3-week pendulum wave. It's another thing. Yes, that's what they do. That's what they do at Westside. The reason that Louis came up with that is because based on biology and physiology, generally the body goes through 21-day physiological cycles, meaning that's when we produce our hormone. That's the cycles in which we produce our hormones. So yeah, dudes, you guys have a man period too, just like women do. And that's why generally, if you think about it, every month, there's kind of like a week where you don't feel like you're that on top of your game. Your estrogen's higher and your testosterone's lower. That's a real thing. What happens when you run the 3-week waves is essentially over time, just like a female's period, you can sync up your biological cycles with your progressions and degressions of volume, especially when you're very consistent with those things. So for us, what we see is in that 3-week wave is generally the time it takes to adapt or get some type of actual adaptation from a specialized movement. I don't believe that you'll achieve accommodation on repeated effort movements, anything less than like 80% weights for at least 3 weeks, if not more. And I think what I see with a lot of conjugate guys, what they fuck up is they do so much changing. Nothing's ever the same. And so what they have is they have a process where the body actually never adapts. The process of accommodation is also the process of adaptation. Our body has to adapt to something to actually get a change from it. So if I'm changing the exercises too often, I'm not getting any adaptation out of it.
Yep.
You know, my body's never getting a chance to adapt to the stimulus or grow. So 3 weeks, I think, seems to be perfect. It avoids burnout. I'm super, they call that extrinsic, very explosive personality. I get bored very easy. So you'll see me commonly changing my specialized. However, I want to point out there's ones that stay in there all the time. There's exercises that never leave my training no matter what. And then most of the time when I'm changing an exercise that's a specialized, it's because I found something on my max effort, right, that I didn't like. And I'm changing it to address that. And, or it's just a slightly different angle. Like one of my waves on the last Chronicles of Strong, like, you know, I was doing a pullover variations. So I kept the pullover variation in. Now I'm just doing like a pullover with like bands, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I was just about to say that. Like I've done that with my athletes. You just, you do your 3 weeks, and then maybe like for tape press, as example, it takes a while for the athletes to kind of get used to that. But then once they get used to it, boom, now you throw in a mini band and then a green band, and then you go to incline. So I mean, you do 12 weeks long with the same movement, but different angles,
exactly,
different accommodated resistance. My sprinters, for instance, my pro day guys, this will be week 4. So now we're going to do the same type sprinting, same all that, but now we're adding chains for their sled work. So they've adapted to the falling sprints, the kneeling sprints, the 40-yard starts. Now we're going to add chains to it, totally different stimulus. But they're going to get excited because, oh, now we're pulling weight. So like they're going to be freaking ready to go, primed, ready to go.
100%. All right, what is your favorite exercise to improve the strength of a baseball bat swing? Well, we don't do any exercise specifically to improve the swing. We do exercises that change and develop the musculature and the joint ranges that are involved during the swing. So, you know, for us, it's always been, the biggest thing has always been wide stances in the sumo deadlift and the box squat. And then obviously Jake talked about this earlier, a lot of anti-rotation. In my opinion, trunk or what you guys call core, the most effective way to impact rotational power is actually through anti-rotation, not through more rotation. Because anti-rotation is a product of stretching tissues that are very strong against each other, that's why we load in the swing. So I don't know what you.
No, I'm the same. Like, I mean, I think I did like some studies, and I need to get a couple more done with these baseball kids. But I mean, all my kids that increased their sumo by 50 pounds put 5 to 6 miles per hour on their exit velocity on their bat. And I just had one of my athletes who's 14. And if you saw what he looked like before and what he looks like now, I mean, he hit his first one out of a major league park today. We sent a bit of that, and I mean, it's from his deadlifts, doing anti-rotational stuff. And like with anti-rotational stuff too, think about like with him, he'll take the ball, he'll slam into the wall and he'll bounce back, and I want him catching it right there. I don't want him coming back with it, and all that carries over. But I think super wide movements, because you're driving off your feet, anti-rotation. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of that, to be honest with you.
No.
But I just think, and you got to throw those anti-rotations though in, because so they can learn how to control that rotation a little bit better. Because if they don't have any control, if they're just doing rotational movements, how can they know how to stop it at the right time and squeeze at the right angle?
That's a good point. All right, let's see here. I got a few more. This one, can you explain how to track total volume each workout and how to increase volume waves? I'm doing doing some stuff right now talking about that, but Jake and I both use, for all of our remote athletes and all of our gym, we both use the same programming platform. I don't really tell anybody what that platform is, because I've changed ours. I've had some customizations done to ours to make it work correctly for max effort, because it has to run off of maxes and stuff like that. But gyms that work with us and we help them with their programming, solve their programming, we set them up on our system so that you can adequately run max effort that way. But I'll tell you, like, just about anything that's out right now, Team Builder, True Coach, Train Heroic, a lot of those platforms, they calculate total volume. Total volume is basically, to put it simply, like every exercise times every repetition done times a number
anything
of sets.
Anything that has a weight in those apps,
You
it's going to
calculate
count as volume.
So at the end of the workout, we literally calculate the total volume. And so like we've gone as far now as over the last few years where we have different calculations for like body weight movements, like push-ups, and even for like our box jumps and squat jumps and plyometrics. Because so like, for instance, you drop off a 20-inch box, you're getting about 1.5 times your body weight on impact force. So a 200-pound athlete puts 300 pounds of volume for the weight. And then it really starts to give you a good measurement of like how much weight volume your athlete experienced during that session. So that's how we go about volume. And it really, it like one of my Chronicles posts, you can see like my volume waves. If you're asking about how to progress your volumes, so generally I look at like a total of 5% total training volume week over week to increase. Mm-hmm. And then on the 4th week, which would be the start of the new 3-week wave, I scale back to the 2nd week's volume of last wave. And that's how I progress. So I'm literally wave over wave, I'm progressing about 5 to 10% wave over wave. That's the goal. You're going to go through seasonal cycles. You're going to go through times where you can't do that. And you just feel smoked and shit. But over a multi-year plan, you should see a definite consistent trend upward in volume.
No, yeah. I'm the same way with increasing the 3 weeks and the waves. And every athlete's different too. You might have some athletes, like especially female athletes, they can handle so much volume that, like, I mean, it's extraordinary how much volume and intensity they can handle rather to a guy. Like a guy might be able to do, I think they're talking about at Westside, but I think most of their stuff now say 5x5 on their dynamic days, where a female might be able to do 10x5 now, just because just how their central nervous system is. They can handle that volume. That's why you've seen CrossFit girls compete in the Olympics in weightlifting, because they can handle the volume and intensity and it doesn't kill them. Whereas a guy, it's like one or the other. Like you can't. So you gotta no.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's why women are generally better built for endurance sports. And I'm not being sexist in that regard. I'm literally just saying, like, physiologically and neurologically, a female is better at higher intensities for longer periods of time than a male. Mm-hmm. And this is shown across multiple species, not just the human species. Female lions, there's a reason that they are the primary hunters, because they can withstand far more anaerobic, volume than the male lions. Male lions are bigger. They require more blood flow, more oxygen. They have more muscle mass, more glycogen, so it's just at the end of the day, the male of the species is generally the bigger, heavier, more powerful species or counterpart of the species. They're designed to do one thing: kill or defend, you know what I mean? And at the most biological level. So, let's see. Last question. Circuits on dynamic effort day instead of classic repetition method for fighting. Being a fighter, I used the conjugate system in training and setting up my fight camps. I can tell you that I didn't change anything. I trained just like I do now for the deadlift because I got so much actual conditioning from my skill work that I didn't have to change anything else. Like, I think we confuse the propensities of strength and endurance, and people need to understand that, like, it's strength endurance. Everything besides one rep is strength endurance.
Yeah. And
like, there's levels to it. And like, there's guys out there like Jason from Box Programming and even Kevin that you guys know from us. Like, they're really good about the energy systems and aerobics and stuff like that. But at the greatest level, at the general level, in my experience, the sport coach handles much of the actual conditioning aspect of strength conditioning. And there's never enough emphasis on strength in any sport. So as strength coaches, I feel like we're far better off focusing our time on building strength and letting the sport coach handle the endurance aspect and the conditioning aspect, because they're getting so much of it anyway. I'm not going to take my fighters and have them going out and doing a shitload of aerobic work, because I know they're going to get their asses run off anyway. So.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I haven't really worked with fighters, but I was pretty high level at CrossFit in the regionals, all these things. And I'm a big guy, pretty good that I made there. But I mean, I didn't change my system at all. I might have taken the volume away from my auxiliaries, because I might have been getting the auxiliaries during a CrossFit workout. But say dynamic day, for instance, I can remember when I was doing push presses or benching, I would work up to 12 sets of 2, 12 sets of 3 every 30 seconds. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get in shape. Like you're going to get in shape. You're going to be able to knock out handstand push-ups. You're going to get your cardiovascular system there if you can handle that volume and intensity. So don't get it twisted. Like if you're doing it the right way, you're going to get in shape when you're training, when you're lifting, because if you try to add too much into the strength conditioning aspect, you're going to die at practice because, like JJ said, they're going to run your ass. They're going to beat your ass to the ground. Like wrestlers, for instance. Yep. I mean, usually they're sport coaches, but usually they're strength coaches. They're running them into the ground every single day.
No, I completely agree. And that, again, at the biggest thing to kind of to just recap and get over this, like at the end of the day, dude, like you only have so much time as a strength coach. Like you only have so much time. And that's why we work with a lot of strength coaches now, and helping them program, because as a strength coach, you have information overload. You're learning from all these sources. Like you want to do all these things. People are talking about proprioception and all this other shit. And like, dude, there's so many things that are so much more effective. And like, there's a couple old school guys out there that are they don't necessarily run the conjugate system, but they have kind of like the same principles. And like, you'll look at them. And like, if you look at the most successful strength coaches, they always master the basics. And they're really good about choosing the things that give you the most bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And if I have to choose between, some fancy form of like aerobic conditioning that's going to match the time and pace of my fight over getting my fighter maximally stronger and then making sure that, his joints are healthy enough that, it's not breaking him down, I'm going to take that every day, because what wins a fight? One punch.
No,
like
I think the best way to put it too is like, look at say John Jones. What did when he picked powerlifting? Like he was just stroking people, and he's still stroking people. Right? He got stronger. Or look at Brock Lesnar before he had
same thing,
the intestinal bacteria,
diverticulitis.
Yeah, he was just stroking people because he was stronger, and he would do his conditioning at practice, but his strength where he was just a strong person. One hit. I mean, his first fight was Heath Herring, knocked him across the ring due to the backflip.
Well, and he's a great example. People talk about if you get too big, you're going to lose your endurance. Brock Lesnar, when he was training, would routinely run 7 to 14 miles.
Yeah.
As a 315-pound athlete. So you can develop the ability to have conditioning. Like yes, it's a part of strength conditioning, but
you have to do the volume and control it the right way.
But you're not going to get better at running 14 miles. By there's not really anything in the weight room that's going to improve your cardiovascular propensity to execute a 14-mile run. Now, what we can do is we can use things like repeated effort method to increase overall strength endurance of the muscles used during the run. And we can use max effort method to increase overall my maximal force output. So my strides are better and stuff like that. But there's nothing I'm going to do in the weight room that's going to mimic 2.5-hour run.
No.
So don't train like that, and don't try to make your training like that.
No.
Even if you set up your Specialized in a circuit, it's still not going to match a 3-minute round in the cage. Yeah. So why are you training like that?
No. And I think the last thing I can say with this year was my first year I've worked with cross country athletes. And like, that's kind of crazy. Like, cross country athletes are working out and doing conjugate. But what it was, I mean, I would talk to their coach, what their volume looks like. We would do our max effort stuff and then a lot of volume on the dumbbells, all that stuff. But as they got stronger, that last 200 meters, they had a kick. They could kick it in because they had the muscular endurance and the strength because they're faster now. They can produce more ground force. So that last 200 meters when they're sprinting, I mean, every cross-country kid PR'd this year. Like it didn't matter how good, how bad they were. They all PR'd just because they got stronger for those last 200-meter sprints or 200-meter of like, whatever the 5K, 2K, whatever the distance would be during the meet.
Totally agree. All right, guys. Well, that's the last of the questions for Q&A. I'll get this posted up tomorrow, and then I'll put up a new Q&A for next week, first thing tomorrow. And hopefully, if you guys are sharing this and posting that out there, we'll get more and more people asking, getting really good questions. What I will say is that, let me know if you like this format. I know it's not as direct as me answering and Jake answering your questions each, one by one in the story, but we also only get like 14 or 15 seconds to do that.
Yeah.
This is, we've been on the mic now for an hour and a half, and we've really given you guys some phenomenal training information. So I know it's a little bit more work to go watch the YouTube video version of this, but I think it's phenomenally more valuable. So, and then
100%, or just put it on in your car as you're driving to work. I mean, if you have a 30-minute drive, you can just listen to us to the question.
This will be posted for now on. It will be posted on the Strong 8 podcast. The obviously the audio version. And then those of you who are strength sport athletes, if you're, or any specific sport, like, you'll see the different specialties that we have now, throughout our different, brands, Strong 8 baseball, Strong 8 strength sports, Strong 8 volleyball will be coming soon. And the strength coaches, we have a platform for you that if you're looking to take the programming and the sequencing that we put together in the Strong 8 system, for your athletes, whatever specialty they may be, or even for your gym, we have that available too. So, get in touch with us. Let us know.
Everybody. I mean, just don't think strength coaches, CrossFit gyms, box style gyms. I mean, just if you want different legitimate training and you want it to work and you want your athletes to get the most out of their hour they have with you, I mean, just let us know where all this stuff's on the horizon. So,
yeah. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
All right, guys, talk to you later.